Here we go. Good afternoon and welcome to the Rapid City Legal and Finance Committee meeting for June 26, 2019. I'd like to start this meeting off with a roll call and determination of quorum, please. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, now that a quorum has been established, I'd welcome a motion to adopt the agenda as presented unless there's a committee member needing to add, modify, or remove any items on the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Laurenti, second by Mr. Solomon. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. We're going to move on to our general public comment portion. Do we have any speaker request forms at this time? Anybody in the audience? All right. Sure. Mr. Lewis would like a...
Just a quick moment of privilege to save time on council meeting on Monday night. Ms. Scott's not here, but I've enjoyed serving with you two gentlemen. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Noted. Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Okay, we're going to move on. Now the general public portion is now closed, and we'll go to our consent items, which are numbers 1 through 13. We'll open this up to public comment. Is there anybody in the audience wishing to speak on items 1 through 13? Okay, we'll close public comment. Any committee members like to pull any? There you go. Mr. Solomon, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I pull item number 12, please?
Great. Yes, you may. Okay. I welcome a motion to approve items 1 through 13 with the exception of number 12. All in favor?
So moved.
Oh, a motion, please.
So moved.
A motion by Mr. Laurenti, second by Mr. Solomon. What am I going to do without you? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Motion carries. Mr. Solomon, you have the floor for number 12.
Thank you. And I believe the city attorney asked to pull this to make some corrections.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, there is a numbering mistake on the agreement linked, so I will correct that. Well, I've already corrected it, but we'll link the correct one on Monday night. So I just wanted to acknowledge for the record that there was a mistake, and we'll so approve the updated one with the numbering correct on the paragraphs.
Is it appropriate then to just continue this to Monday night then, or can we still authorize?
I think you can authorize it. There's no substantive change. It's just if you look at it, the numbering isn't correct. So I'm going to correct the numbering of the paragraphs.
Okay. Very well. Well, since I have the floor, and this is about a vision fund allocation, and I do see Roger Gallimore, head of the YMCA, is here. Roger, you guys are doing a tremendous job. Such a force for good in our community. I think we were all very pleased to support this project, and we know you'll continue to do amazing things. You can tell a lot about an organization by what it would look like if they weren't there. If we didn't have the YMCA here, what would our community look like? But you're here, you're doing amazing things, and excited to see what you do with this. I yield.
Great. Thank you. All right, I'd welcome a motion for item 12, authorizing the mayor and finance officer to sign an agreement between the City of Rapid City and the Young Men's Christian Association of Rapid City, Inc. for the use of city vision funds to renovate its facility, 625 9th Street, for use as a childhood development center. A motion to approve by Mr. Laurenti, a second by Mr. Solomon. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, motion carries. All right, now we're going to move to under our finance department. Number 14, we have a second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6339 regarding supplemental appropriation number 5 for 2019. I retract that. Thank you. We need to open up public comment for prior to that. Anybody in there? Okay, sorry, technical processing error. Okay, public comment is now closed. Thank you. Once again, going to the Finance Department for number 14, the second reading and recommendation of ordinance number 6339 regarding supplemental appropriation number 5 for 2019.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve by Mr. Laurenti, second by Mr. Solomon. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, motion carries. And now on item number 15, we have Dakota Rural Action of the Black Hills Chapter presentation regarding our watershed. I believe Dr. Lilius Jarding and Cheryl Rowe will be presenting to us. Thank you. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm Dr. Lilius Jarding, and I'm with Clean Water Alliance. With Dakota Rural Action Black Hills Chapter, we have been working on mining issues. And you're not going to be able to see my little pointer, I guess, because you're watching this way, and I can only point it that way.
You can turn
but
around.
I will. Can you? Well, I don't know if you'll be so close. You might as well just watch it up there.
Okay.
And then I will be trying to locate some things on maps for you, so I will just sort of talk our way through it. Rick Bell should be here soon, hopefully.
Okay. I
He sort of-
told you.
He sort of got bad information, yeah. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about today is, first of all, what is the Rapid Creek watershed, and then why are we concerned about it? Then I will talk about what is the situation around exploration and mining permits in the central Black Hills, and then I will talk about what city government can do to protect our watershed and Rapid City's long-term well-being. So most of you are probably familiar with the concept, but just in case somebody isn't, a watershed is the region or area drained by a river or a stream, or sort of the drainage area that goes into a river or a stream. So why that's significant here is that whatever's in the watershed or loose on the ground ends up in the river or the stream. And then whatever's in the river or stream ends up downstream from there. So in the case of Rapid Creek in the Black Hills, whatever's in the watershed ends up going through Rapid City and eventually down the Cheyenne River to the Missouri and Mississippi rivers. So this is a map of the upper Rapid Creek watershed in the Black Hills. And about the middle you'll see Deerfield Lake, and the activity for the water flows from left to right. Okay, so by the time we get to the far right side, we have only Rapid Creek going over into the next map that I'll be showing you. But you'll see that this is quite a broad area. It includes the Castle Creek, the North Fork and South Fork of Rapid Creek before they join together. It includes the town of Rochford. It also includes tribal lands at Peshla, and it all flows to your right. Then this map picks up where the other map leaves off, again flowing from left to right. So as we get closer to Rapid City, you'll see that the main landmark for most of it is Pactola Reservoir, and that is, as you I'm sure all know, fed by Rapid Creek, and also Rapid Creek comes out of it on the other side. It's a man-made reservoir. And then, of course, the creek flows through Johnson Siding, Dark Canyon, past Canyon Lake, and through the city. So one thing we want to talk about is not just where it goes, but what the significance of that can be. And so one of the questions that I came up with immediately is what difference does this make in terms of talking about the potential for mining up in the Black Hills? And we have information from George Cruz, who is a School of Mines graduate and a former mining company president. He did the calculations and said that in a higher flow situation, not highest flow, but higher flow situation, water flows from the Rochford area, where exploration is already happening, through to Pactola Lake in 29 to 32 minutes. So it moves quickly. If there was some kind of a toxic spill in western Pennington County, that's how much time we would have to prepare to keep it out of Pactola and the Rapid City's water supply. Okay, so kind of keep that in mind as we talk, as we move forward here. And luckily, my husband and I got to go out for a hike on Sunday, and I got to take pictures of the creek. So that's what it looks like this week. Now, this is the other graphic that is extremely important, and I'm going to try and talk you through it again. My clicker would be nice, but the Black Hills layers of rock, when the Black Hills pushed up, the layers of rock were pushed onto their sides. So you'll see the Madison limestone, which is an aquifer, the Minnelusa formation, which is an aquifer, and the Inyan-Kara group, which is also an aquifer. Those are all rock formations that were pushed on their sides. So what this means for water is that when it rains or snows in the Black Hills, the meltwater or the rainwater flows down into the aquifers where they are up on their sides. Is that clear? Okay. So Rapid Creek in particular, this is important, and many of you probably know that the creeks along the east side of the Black Hills kind of disappear sometimes. Rapid Creek doesn't all the way disappear, but in the Dark Canyon area, water flows into the Madison limestone and into the Minnelusa Formation, which are both aquifers. That happens to be where that happens. And there are large amounts of water that flow from Rapid Creek down into those formations. And those formations are the two formations, in addition to Rapid Creek, that Rapid City gets its water from. So we're concerned about whatever flows down Rapid Creek into the city, not only because of the Rapid Creek flow, but also because of what goes out of Rapid Creek into these two aquifers that we then use for our wells in the city. Okay? So in terms of this first little section, whatever's in the water in the central Black Hills flows towards Rapid City. Whatever's in Rapid Creek flows into the aquifers that the city uses for drinking water. And if there was a toxic spill in the central Black Hills, all three sources of city water, Rapid Creek, the Madison Aquifer, and the Minnelusa Aquifer, could become contaminated at the same time and in a short period of time. So that's why, when I realized this, I looked at the geological studies and I realized this, and I went, oh. So why are we concerned about the Rapid Creek watershed when it comes to the potential for mining? Modern mining uses cyanide and acid, and it's used to leach gold and heavy metals out of the ore. And the cyanide, the heavy metals can all be washed downstream. Many mines, including the Gilt Edge mine in the Black Hills, have created what they call acid water drainage or acid water flowage. It's where they have hit groundwater when they were mining. And the rocks that gold is found in are sulfide rocks, and you need a geologist to explain it beyond that, but basically what happens is when the groundwater runs over the mined rocks, the rocks in the mining area, it creates acid. And that, in the situations where, like Gilt Edge mine, it's a permanent flow because the groundwater flows permanently, okay? And they can't figure out how to stop it in some cases, including the Gilt Edge mine in the Black Hills, Summitville mine in Colorado, and a lot of others. Mining creates waste rock in addition, they call it tailings. It's often stored with water behind a dam. We have one that I know of that's a larger one in the Black Hills as part of the Homestake conglomeration. It's called the Grizzly Gulch Tailings Dam. And there are recent accidents and issues involving all of these situations, including problems in the Black Hills. So I'll give you a little more specifics. Recent accidents in 2015 in Colorado, there was an acid mine drainage spill. That's the picture at the top. The impacts of this spill were felt for 150 miles downstream. They had to close wells, including municipal wells, farmers' wells, shut down tourism, obviously, if you look at that creek or river, and they couldn't irrigate crops. And the effects lasted for months. I don't know exactly how long, but it lasted for some time. On the bottom right, you will see a picture of the results of an accident at the Poly mine in British Columbia in 2014. In this situation, a tailings dam broke, and 4.4 million cubic meters of heavy metals were washed out into the watershed. And then most recently, one you may have heard about in the news is the Brumadinho mine in Brazil, in which another tailings dam broke, and 134 people were killed and 252 unaccounted for. So you want to build tailings dams in certain places if you're going to build them. In the Black Hills, small-scale gold mining started in the 1870s, which is the time that the Black Hills were taken from Lakota control and began to be controlled by the United States. The modern open-pit gold mines are many times larger and cover square miles of land, such as the Wharf mine. The Homestake mine in Lead contaminated the soil, surface, and groundwater. This is according to the Environmental Protection Agency. It also killed 18 miles of Whitewood Creek and was named a Superfund site. So its Superfund site is just one of our most contaminated sites in the United States, and it left a large hole. Now, in Lee, they want to make the open cut a tourist attraction, and that's fine, they can do that. But the reality is that it's also an unreclaimed mine. Okay, so there's a couple ways you can look at it. The Gilt Edge mine, which I've noted a minute ago, is in the Northern Hills also. It stopped operations in 1999 and is also a Superfund site. Here the main reason is because the state and the EPA cannot stop the acid mine drainage that I described a bit earlier. The latest estimate for the cost to clean up the Gilt Edge mine is $200 million if they can stop the drainage. The mining bond that the state required was $20 million. Okay? So that's a state problem, but it affects all of us as taxpayers. So having said all that, what is the situation around exploration and mining in the central Black Hills? In the central Black Hills, there's only been small-scale gold mining in the past, and nothing is active except maybe individual miners' claims somewhere, and I don't know the details on that. What we do know is that the Forest Service says there have been 5 recent applications to explore for gold in the Black Hills. The Forest Service said 1 was withdrawn. 2 of the others are known, and I'll talk about those a bit more in a minute, and 2 are unknown. The Forest Service has said that these 2 other exploration requests are in the central Black Hills, but then they contradicted themselves on something, so we don't know where they are, who wants to mine, how big it would be, how long it would last. We don't know any of those things yet. And we filed, Clean Water Alliance filed a Freedom of Information Act request to get that information, and were denied, and currently it's under appeal. So one of the companies we do know about is Mineral Mountain Resources. This is the only one of the ones that I'll be talking about that has done some exploration. They're a Canadian company. They have claims on 7,500 acres of land near Peshla and Rochford. They basically goes a few miles south of Rochford to a few miles north of Rochford and a mile or so on either side. They want to do an open pit mine. They received a state exploration permit and temporary water permits to take water out of Rapid Creek for drilling on private lands, and that's the drilling that they've done. They've done a few holes on private lands. They also have asked for a Forest Service permit for drilling on public lands. They are not liked in Keystone because they asked the city for water for this project and were denied because in the past, when they were drilling at Keystone, there had been a spill into Battle Creek from their operation. They drilled a few holes and they left late last winter, and they may return soon or they may not. Nobody knows if they found anything meaningful. You know, that's proprietary information at this point. So they may come back or they may not. The other company that we know who they are in the Central Black Hills that's looking at a large-scale gold operation is F3 Gold, and they also have a subsidiary owned by the same 2 men that's called Big Rock Exploration. They're out of Minneapolis. They have almost 2,500 claims in Pennington, Lawrence, and Custer counties. They have asked the Forest Service for permission to explore near Silver City and the inlet to Pactola Lake. They say it's only exploring. They won't say anything about what might happen next because they say we're only exploring. So the implication is that they would sell out if they find anything. So we don't know who might actually end up being involved there. But it says on its website, it wants to prove its exploration techniques. And when they held an event that was a public event, they stopped people from filming the event. So people are sort of wondering what's going on there. So this you might have to turn around to see. This is the Central Black Hills. Some things are marked. Silver City, Rochford, Rapid City, Hill City, Custer are all marked. The yellow swaths are Mineral Mountain Resources claims. Now when we map claims, we map them down to the quarter section. That's as small as the federal database will let us map them. So there are some acres in this area that are not impacted. However, the quarter section is. Okay. So there you'll see Rochford at the center, the tribal holdings, Peshla to the west. The red are the claims by F3 Gold. Remember, this is all in what I'm talking about is all in the city's watershed. So all of the Mineral Mountain Resources claims in the big blob to the west are in our watershed. The claims from just south of Pactola Lake north are in the city's watershed in the red area, the F3 Gold claims. One thing to notice here is that the claims overlap part of Pactola. And so I asked an attorney about what that meant. He looked it up in the Federal Register, and when Pactola Recreation Area was formed, they withdrew 35 acres in the recreation area for mining. And those acres are at the boat launches at the north and the south. So the actual lake, some portion of it is claimable by mining claims and therefore mineable. Okay, so if we ever got to that point, the city would need to do something for sure, because that's federal law as it sits right now. Okay, it would be mineable. And then you'll see there's some down in Custer County and some to the south around Sheridan Lake. So let's look at the government roles for a minute. My area is environmental policy. That's what my doctorate is in. So I always have to talk about policy. And federal law, sort of the baseline two laws. One is the 1872 mining law, which was passed in 1872, so it's an old law. And what it basically says is that someone can come in and claim public lands that they have the right to mine there. It basically, there's no royalties paid to the federal government. They have the right to mine there. So that's one of the big things that we face here, is that federal law, that federal law is not friendly to anyone who wants to protect the watershed. The other set of the other major federal law is the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. NEPA requires that someone who wants to do an act that impacts federal organizations follow a certain process that involves the public, that fully informs people of what is planned, what might happen, and what can be done to prevent problems. Okay. One part of the NEPA process is that the federal agency must go through the NHPA, or the National Historic Preservation Act process also, and identify any kinds of historical or cultural resources in the area that the company or whoever wants to impact. That has been very important because the Black Hills are, as you know, are a rich source of historical and cultural resources, both for Native Americans and for non-Indians. So that's an important part of the NEPA process in the Black Hills. The federal government on federal lands issues exploration permits. Someone would have to apply for a mining permit. The federal government does some oversight, particularly the Environmental Protection Agency does some oversight of operations in the hills. And then I already talked about the recreation area and Pactola. The state has also got responsibilities. It has exploration permits on private lands. It issues water rights if someone wants to use water, and of course mining uses a large amount of water, exploration uses water. Mining permits, and the state has more of the day-to-day boots-on-the-ground kind of oversight of mining operations. So that would be the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. County roles are, as you're all probably aware, the county has recently passed a new mining ordinance, which is applied to sand and gravel types of mining. It has also been in the process for some time of setting up a new hard rock mining ordinance, and gold mine is hard rock mining, so is silver mining, uranium mining, and other kinds of things, copper. And this hard rock mining ordinance is somewhere in the process of getting started. It's currently at the planning department of the county, and they're supposed to write a draft, and then it would move to the planning commission and public input, and then to the county commission if something was passed. The interesting thing about counties when you talk about mining on federal lands is despite the 1872 mining law, legally, counties have the power to say no to mining. Okay? This has happened in rare occasions, but it has happened. The city of every place except for the exact place that an open pit mine might be dug would be the most heavily impacted if there was large-scale mining in the central Black Hills, because it impacts our water supply, and that would, be a major issue. It also could involve using large amounts of water from Rapid Creek or one of our aquifers. So the thing to remember when we're talking about mining in the Black Hills is that, especially the central Black Hills, where things are relatively untouched compared to the large mines in the northern hills and the 200 some odd old uranium mines and prospects in the southern hills, is that it impacts not only water but the economy. Because tourism, for example, Rochford has the Mickelson Trail that goes through it. 2.5 miles of that trail go through the area where the company has claims. Okay? Hiking, you don't hike around a gold mine. Well, first of all, they won't let you. But most people don't go see that as a tourism attraction, except the open cut, perhaps. It impacts potentially health and very likely agriculture because they need the water. So I'm introducing Rick Bell, who is here, and we'll talk about the last few slides. This goes forward.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Rick Bell. I am a professional engineer, environmental engineer here in Rapid, PE in the state, and I'm also chair of the Black Hills chapter of Dakota Rural Action. So we have an interest in this, and I think Lilius did a good job of laying out what the issues are. And what I want to do is just take a couple of minutes and talk about what I think recommends the city could do. The city government should be doing something to protect our watershed and the city's long-term well-being. The first thing I would encourage you to do is establish some kind of liaison to communicate with other governments. I think cooperation and communication with federal, state, county, tribal governments is imperative if we want to stay on top of this and protect ourselves to know what's going on. In the whole watershed, Rapid City watershed, we're going to be impacted if any of these mining operations should choose to occur. And I think, it's important to take the high moral ground because we need to protect our citizens and we need to protect the community's future. And we need to plan better protection of our city's water resources. So I think it's important to really be knowledgeable about what's going on and to try to coordinate with other governments. So what else can city government do? I think opposition as a public official is really important. And we had a water forum recently before the election of city council, new city council members, and most of the candidates were in opposition to our discussion about what might happen to water here in the Black Hills that affects the city's water supply. You guys can pass a resolution to protect our water and oppose exploration. It might not be legally enforceable, but it's a statement of where you stand on this issue of hard rock mining in the central Black Hills and how it might adversely impact the city's watershed. So we would be glad to work with this committee to try to draft a resolution if you so request. We have some experience in this regard, so we'd be glad to help in that effort. And I think it's also really important to keep the citizens of the city informed about what's going on and what the city's efforts are to try to counteract some of these negative impacts. And it's important to communicate with other organizations that are working on this issue. And, you can communicate at conferences, meetings, public events. I know the city's sustainability committee had a booth at the Earth Day, and those would be the kind of opportunities for you guys to talk about what the issues are and how you're concerned about the impact to our watershed. So in essence, I think that's about it. So there's our contact information, both telephone numbers, emails, and Facebook pages, etc. And at this point, if there's any questions for either Lilius or myself, feel free to let us know.
Thank you very much. Great presentation. Mr. Lewis and Mr. Solomon are in the queue. Mr. Lewis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just move to acknowledge. And also, if I could, I think we already did a resolution a few years back. I'm going to have someone, memory serves me on that. No legal here, but I know we had something about the uranium mine that was brought before us. Did we do anybody remember if we did a resolution at that point? I don't know. I have to go back and look, but I think we did something already, if memory serves me. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion to acknowledge by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Solomon. Mr. Solomon, you have the floor.
And although I'm leaving, my suggestion to the council is to make sure that our Public Works Department, our water engineers are part of any of all those discussions, because that'll be who we pay, obviously, to listen. But I do appreciate you taking the time to share with us today, bringing awareness to the issue. So.
Our Public Works Director, Mr. Dale Tech, was in the audience, so I commend him for being a part of this and watching this.
We've been in communication.
Yep. Do you have anything further to add?
I was just saying, I don't know if that microphone's on, but we've been in communication with Public Works folks as well.
Great, great. All right, so we have a motion to acknowledge by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Solomon. All in favor? Aye. Okay, thank you. What do we see? Okay, we have a motion to adjourn by Mr. Lewis, second by Mr. Solomon. There is a city council meeting next week on Monday, July 1st at 6:30 p.m. in these chambers. We'll have changes of, we'll have new people in and some people leaving. And quick point of personal privilege, it has been a pleasure working with Mr. Solomon, Mr. Laurenti, so thank you. Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. Thank you.